Hi, I'm John DeArmond.
And I'm Edward.
And we're with Coquille Valley Sword Group. And today we're going to be going over the application for the Uke Nagashi katas, left and right. So, Uke Nagashi is very much the twin to the Hasso katas. In the same way that Hasso has an outside that is offense and a hidden inside, Uke Nagashi has a defense on the outside and a hidden offense on the inside. So it's pretty useful. I use it a lot to great effect. So let's take a look at the kata, going once through, and then we'll break down each step bit by bit, and then go from there. So we're going to start with the kata. We're just going to go through it once without anything special. This is the two-handed pause version. I'm Uchidachi, obviously, and Eddie is Shidachi. Good. Easy and simple. So, we'll start from the beginning. Ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum, ba-da-dum. We begin our steps. 1, 2, 3. Now, again, Eddie is in that advantageous low guard. You know, I've taken the high guard and I've exposed myself to a lot of risk, and we'll show that risk later. But for right now, we'll just do it as the kata is. So, the first thing he's going to do, he's going to wait a little bit, right? If he plans to dodge over here and starts moving before my cut has really sort of germinated, I'm just going to follow him, I'm going to bind into him, and he's going to have a whole different kind of fight on his hands. Instead, he waits a little bit until my sword comes to about here. Once it crosses that vertical line, now he can step and defend himself with relative ease in this fashion, right? So I step, and the first thing he does is he cross steps. Boom. As he brings the sword up, not to protect himself, because if he moves the sword out of the way, right, well, Eddie has stepped off the line of attack. The defense here is not in the sword, it's in the body, it's in the taitsubaki, it's in how we have stepped and positioned ourselves in, right, on the line-ish, in relation to that line of attack, right? Now, he is bringing his sword up, again, kind of like a matador's cape. He wants to catch my attention, right? Whoa, because I'm focused at his face, right? Because I'm trying to cleave his head in like a cassava melon, right? So I cut, and he throws this thing up, and I think, nah, you know, for good or worse, I am going to hit this thing. Maybe, right? My intention is to hit and retreat, to back off.
To see what I was doing.
Because if I just retreat, right at this point, he's going to take me because he's got the initiative of motion, right? Or my thought might be that I'm going to come under and try and take maybe his brachial artery, or come into his belly, or try and take his leg, right? The brachial artery is probably the best option here.
Because I am in the high guard.
And if I start cutting into either of these heavy masses, what will happen is I am turning his body into the direction that I am moving. I am making it easier for him to track me naturalistically, which typically I want to avoid. Now, so regardless, I am going to try and hit that. Now maybe I have no skill at all, and I see that thing, and I think, oh, right? And I'm just in la la land, like we appear in the kata. It can happen, right? Or maybe I'm from a heavier hitting school or a grappling type school, right? And he throws that up, and I think I'm just going to pressure through that. oh shit, right? He's stepped off the line and I missed it because I'm trying to drive into him. I'm trying to take him. I'm trying to smash him. I'm really just trying to take everything about him here. And I can do that from far distance or from medium or from close. So if I throw this up again, right, I can just drive with that mono uchi and he can still evade it. So even though I came off almost 7-8 degrees off the line of attack chasing him,
It was pretty close.
right, he was still able to control it through this method of sort of helicoptering the sword around, right? So this helicoptering of the sword, right?
Very German.
German-esque, right? So as I'm pushing in, whoop, and it's kind of like the game you play as a kid sometimes, where you put your hands against your partner and you just lean, and you guys walk backwards with your feet, sort of making a pressure bridge, and you see who's going to let go first, who's going to drop it. It's the same kind of thing, except in this case, he drops it, right? And he drops it almost immediately, right? So I'm still in that kind of like, and I get that sort of like you're going down to your basement and it's dark out and you miss a step, or you miscount your steps and you hit that floor before you expected, and that sort of jar, unsettling. Exactly.
When you do it right, you get the lunge.
Exactly. And when you play with people and you're using this work, you can identify your efficacy based on their body behavior. If I'm throwing this and he comes up and he blocks it and he just steps and there's no change to my form, it means that either I was not committed to the attack in the first place, which is the case here, or he did something that let me know what was up. He revealed the punchline of the joke before he did the setup, right? He's let me figure it out. So what you're looking for is the kind of reaction to where they end up on the balls of their feet. When you get really good, you'll get this sort of like chin lead stumble.
Fall.
Yeah, it's the same kind of body reaction that you get when you start working and studying how to break a person's elbow while standing, right? It's that, right? Oh, exactly. So from the step, right? This position, it's very bad for me because right away he has me because he's behind my elbow, right? The moment he gets behind my elbow, he controls my body's ability to turn into him. And once you have that, I mean, the other guy has to do a lot of kind of gymnastics to get away from you. It's a little unfortunate for them. Now, for him, of course, he can, with both hands on his ska, just use his ska as a lever to push and then cut me. He can strike me directly into the face or into the tricep to create that turn, to bring my weapons away from his position. If he wants to strike me, if he wants to cut me powerfully with his sword, of course, we're very close. So he has kind of two options here. He cuts at me, right? From my position, I can come in, and push, cut. Or, what I can do is push him lighter and cut. Now he kind of stepped to help me out there, which was not real great.
Well, I was prepared for that. Want to do it again?
Yeah. So he cuts, and I just push him a little bit. What I'm looking is not to move him necessarily. Strong arms, right? Because he's cutting at me. What I want is for him to have to take time to get back to me. Because I'm going to take that time to take him. Tendons. I generally won't go for wrists here because the wrists are in play. They're lively, they're in motion. He can avoid, and he can really get me if I'm just trying to take his wrists in this sort of no man's land. So instead, I will tend to work on his core. I want to either remove his ability to work with the sword, or I want to keep his body going away from me. so that this is not a problem. And this kind of positional work, where you start to use their body to sort of turn them, is very useful, especially when you start looking at the more practical aspects of fighting against more than one person. And in the beginning, it seems very overwhelming. Like, oh, you're not only going to dodge these, 3-4 dudes, but you're going to start like pivoting them like little chess pieces and putting them where you want. And it seems like a sort of Herculean task, but it's actually fairly simple once you're comfortable with sword interplay in general, right? And then you're not so frightened, and you have control. You can start playing with things, right? So in here, he's parried, and I retreat. Then he takes that cut on the forearm. Now, of course, this is safety for the kata. So where is he trying to cut? This position is actually quite good, right? He can hit the clavicle and the subclavian artery. The elbow tendon is usually right there because they're shirking away or they're trying to do some sort of ballerina twirl out, right? Also, a lot of times in the kata, of course, we're throwing kiriotoshi, downward cut. But he can take this into a keisegiri, creating this sense that here is this wave and here's this wall, and I have to move away from it. This is good for him because he can follow up right away, bump with the thrust, with the poke, with additional cuts, or he can pause, right? He can make that cut, whoop, and he can wait for a second, and then he can respond in the half beat, or in the afterglow, actually, and take me there. So
So many options.
there's a lot of options, right? And to really get a sense for it, of course, you have to learn the kata and do the kata and get to where doing the kata is not something that you have to think about, right? You're like, oh, we're doing Uke Nagashi, and your body just goes where you should ought to be. Koshin Mihanmi, good position, good orientation, good distance. Ba, 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 ba. But once you progress to that point, of course, you'll still practice that, but you begin to play and look at these other options. As we mentioned, after the cut, ba, ba, we're back to the thrust, right, to follow the work. Very simple, very easy. I mentioned that there's a sort of hidden offense to Uke Nagashi, and it is actually one of the most important strikes that we do in Kyoho, which is this rising cut, this almost kiriage or sogiri type cut. And it is executed in the same way, right? But with my sword forward to my position rather than horizontal. Typically, I still want to keep my hand out of alignment from my head. Because if I screw up my distance and position, or I show him too much, or maybe I miscalculate my step, he's going to come and hit at me, and if my hand is there, of course he's going to hit it without even necessarily trying to. So I want to make sure that I'm protecting my bits and biddles, especially the thing that keeps him under control. Now, just as in the kata variants, you can do this two-handed, you can do this one-handed. This is why that scooping motion we talked about in Uke Nagashi is so important. Yeah, you scoop to it. If you try and just kind of like fan, as though the edge of your sword just kind of goes like this, you will not cut well, if at all. Yeah, it's just not going to work. What you need is, as he's cutting, to get your hasuji set up and to use your body to drive into the sword. Now, this builds into the same work that we did at the end of the kata. So, let's say that we end up very close, right? He cuts, right? I take the arm, I take Tsugetsu, right? His diaphragm, bump, and I take the whole body, right? I control his ability to hit me because he can't chop off his own arm to cut at me. And even if he could, he doesn't have the range to because I've turned his body so that his backhand is far away from me.
Yeah.
Next, the next kind of variant to this is when your distance is very good, right? They've swung at you, you've taken it, and you come down. So you follow, just like in the kata. Ba, 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 right? So I'm doing this on the migi side so that the camera can see it better, but it's the same on hidari, right? So 1, 2, 3. This, in the Gorin no Sho and the Heiho Sanjuku Kasho, this is the sort of chiding strike that Musashi talks about. You hit him, tut, tut, right? So it's pretty simple, pretty easy.
Pretty fun.
Pretty fun, pretty fun. Let's look at some other applications with some other tools. So now we'll demonstrate using Uke Nagashi both in its defensive and in its offensive capacity with some Fukuro Shinai work. So I'm going to be feeding work to Eddie, mostly just downward cuts of various flavors, and he's going to be working Uke Nagashi. Right. Whoop, 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 yep. Right. Yep. Only because you hit me with your mune.
Yeah, I know, right?
Get your tenuchi in order. All right. Whoop. Ah. Up. Whoop. Ba. Ba.
That was the dish.
So, you can see how this can start to be applied. Use of the cross step to avoid the blow, and then either setting up to hit later, hitting in the instant, or hitting Kendo-sen first initiative. Because you can, I didn't mention it before, but you can hit this in all 3 initiatives. So if Eddie wants to attack me, right, I can hit him in the first initiative, right, before he has an opportunity to complete his attack.
Much more offensive than...
It's very offensive. You got some guy who's like, oh, I know, and he's willing to pick up a Shinai. This is a good way to shut him down. Because everyone disrespects the low guard, right? Because they don't know what they don't know.
Because the high guard's fast.
It's fabulous. The high guard's great, low guard's great. It's not that one's better than the other. It's that
Everyone forgets the low guard.
people have favorites, right? And it is unwise to let your personal favoritism color your view of reality. Just because you like Hasso the best doesn't mean it's the best guard. And if you ignore other guards because of that, of course, someone in some other guard is just going to educate you. So, I think you guys have seen enough of the Fukuro work to get the sense of this. It's pretty simple, pretty easy. Play with it, have fun. Next, we'll go ahead and do some knife work and some unarmed work so you can get a sense of kind of the underlying concepts, and they can be a little bit more clear to you. Okay, so at first, the concepts may seem a little bit difficult to apply to other work. Because we look at the kata for Uke Nagashi and think, okay, well, what are the concepts? Well, we're getting off the line. Well, we do that in all the katas. So we do this little like blocky thing, right? Is this the concept? Is this what Uke Nagashi is, right? And if so, how the heck am I to, right? How am I going to do this with this tiny little thing in any kind of like realistic, reasonable speed for the tool that we're using? Of course, the answer is the concept is not the specific motion.
Not the windmill.
Exactly. The concept is the underlying notion of what it is we're doing. And what is it that we're doing? We're coming from the underneath, right? So we're taking the same stuff that we built in Sasen, get off the line and poke him. Same stuff we built in Hasso, get off the line and hit him from above. And now we're getting off the line and hitting him from underneath, right? It's, everyone, when you start saying, you gotta look at the inside, see the truth of the thing, they think it's like some big mystical experience, right? Some vision quest of the mind. It's not. It's common sense, and it's just breaking it down to its simplest factors, because that simple factor is what's going to make the idea usable to you in a broad range. So, if Eddie wants to come and attack me in some kind of way, right? I come underneath, I take out the liver, I'm still behind the elbow, right? I've got control, I can start to work him. Under, over, thrust. Almost exactly like the kata, but on the outside, completely different. There are lots of ways to do this, right? I can come to the, hold on, I'm trying to think of how to move so I don't block the camera shot, I'm sorry. This is the camera thing's new for me. So, of course, let's say he's attacking me, right? And I can play a little bit, right? And I can come in, right? So, I move, I'm receiving, I'm not stopping his motion. Right, I'm going with it.
You're suggesting it.
Staying the hell out of the way the entire time. And then underneath, take that brachial. And start working. Right? Maybe I want to use my knife defensively, whether forward or yakute, right? He comes to work. Underneath, and I've got it controlled now. Right? So, ba, ba, ba. I can work the elbow, or I can just check the elbow so that he can't turn against me. And I'm in that same virtue of position sort of relation, right? And of course I can follow through, I can start to grapple, I can start to give him some handles to hold on to help grappling. I can play with it a little bit, right? Now, if we're doing this work open-handed, it's the same kind of way, right? He's coming to work me, however, right? Boom. And again, I'm working from this low position with the same kind of virtues, right? If I'm here, right, my face is like this big giant pumpkin of a target. He's like, oh man, I'm gonna tag this dude. And if I have a lot of fear, or my training or inclination has always been to kind of like the person is saying, no, stop that, get it away from me.
Get out of your car.
Of course, this is going to be hard for me. But this also keeps us at a distance, right? Right? I have to take additional motion to start reaching him, which is crazy because he should be making all the motion because he has to come up, boo, to hit me, right? Why am I going to stop him from doing my work, right? Of course I want him to, if he is of the mind to toddle himself all the way over here and give me an opportunity to lay this, hurt on him, I am going to oblige him because I am a kind and compassionate fellow, right?
Strive for true quality.
It's true quality, right? So he comes to hit me, and again, how do I protect myself? With taitsubaki, right? Right? And I work as I please. Not necessarily with my hands. Of course, hands are convenient because we're monkeys and that's what we do, right?
We have thumbs.
Yeah. But understanding how you can work with other tools is important too. So, yeah, same kind of thing, right? He hits me, however, it doesn't really matter, right? Right? I come under, right? Maybe we start to grapple, right? With some maybe not PG-rated maneuvers. You play, you control, you see how you can come from underneath to give yourself advantage, right? Right? From underneath. from where you don't seem threatening, where you don't seem as though you're able to protect yourself at all, right? Because again, they feel, of course, I can hit you. It's like, of course you can hit me, right? But he has to travel, 3 feet with his step, 4 or 5 maybe. I have to travel half a foot to be safe. It doesn't matter if he's faster. Not at all. Because I am traveling less distance, right? It's like those math problems. A train leaves the station from blah, 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 blah. I'm traveling less distance. I have the ease. It doesn't mean I have to travel less distance to win. It means that already I am setting up the situation to my advantage, right? And I'm taking that advantage and capitalizing it. Now, of course, if me and Eddie are kind of equally matched, then, those advantages are useful, but not necessarily, you must have them like a requisite. And of course, if I am much better than Eddie, or in a better situation, I have to stand on my toes. Then of course I can kind of get away with a lot of nonsense and still prevail, assuming that he doesn't have any skill, right? But I have to assume that at the very least, he thinks he's better than me, right? At the very least, this person didn't start a fight going, this person's gonna kick my ass, I'm gonna come up here and beat him up, right? He has some feeling inside of him, some internal knowledge or belief that leads him to think that he is gonna prevail. I'm fine with taking him at his word. He says, he's a big, bad, dangerous dude, that's fine. I'm going to treat him like a big, bad, dangerous dude, and I am going to leverage every advantage I possibly can against him, right? And sometimes that means working right now to sort of change the tide of initiative and how he feels about the fight. Sometimes it means drawing it out a little bit and getting more information. If he starts doing some weirdo nonsense that is bizarre to me, I might be like, okay, well, yeah, let's get a little bit of information and see what's going on here and bring him in, rope him in, like quicksand. The more he struggles, the more it just gets deeper and deeper and deeper until I can work at my ease. Right? Because it's important that I'm comfortable. If I'm trying to work in a way that makes me uncomfortable, while I'm already uncomfortable from the situation, the violence that's going on, I'm going to have a very rough time. I have to be compassionate to myself, right? Make myself comfortable. So that even if he's working with a knife, right, or whatever, I have to control and start to see how I can take this situation and turn it to something that gives me strength. Whether I'm working dead on the line, whether I'm coming off the line, whether I'm working from above or below, these things, while the technical ability to do them is important because the better you can do a thing, the less effort it costs you. It's not so necessary. But that's a little deeper than I wanted to get, right? Don't be afraid of experience, right? It's just going to make your work better, right? If you're working with friends, you're working with a class of other martial artists, which is excellent, even if they're not your style. You find the guy that you're scared of, the biggest, strongest, or the most technically proficient, the dude that's like, oh, you're 300 pounds heavier than I throw you with my pinky, right? That's the guy you want to start fighting, right? In a pleasant sort of amicable way, of course. Because they're going to make you better. Because you're going to see how it is they're beating you. And you're going to be able to sort of work back and go, this person is able to do this thing because of these reasons. If it's something natural that you cannot change, like, Eddie's taller than me. If he's beating me because he's taller than me, I can't I'm wearing some lifts here, buddy boy, yeah? I'll just have to develop my tactics better to deal with it. But if he's beating me because of some kind of technical superiority or some strategic nuance, then I can study it, I can learn it, I can observe it, and I can bring it into myself, make it part of my work and overcome him, right? You don't get better by beating people weaker than you, right? You don't even really get better working with people that are weaker than you unless you are teaching and you are very thoughtful and thorough. But that is the much harder road to go about it. It is much more direct just to say, hey, let's go a little bit, right? You'll learn a lot more, and it's better for your heart too, so you lose your fear, right? Gain caution, lose fear, right? So, we can do a little bit of grappling work just to show, right? Because again, Hyoho is not about technique, right? It's about concept, strategy, right? So if Eddie wants to come and work on me, right, I can come up, and now I can start to choke, I can start to throw, whatever. It's not super important, right? Now, because Eddie is my friend, I did not drop my weight into Koshimi on me, right? But Eddie's bigger and heavier than I am. If I try and stand tall with him, right, and grip him, he is very likely just going to buck and toss me like a rag over his shoulder. But if I can apply my weight off of his line of structural support, then basically I get to injure his muscles as he tries to fight against it. Or he's smart, tries to roll with it to see if he can find space to come out of it. Then all I have to do is kind of follow with him, and it becomes, well, who has better technical work at that point? who has the advantage, right, for whatever reason. But yeah, it's the same way with joints, it's the same way with all this stuff. It's not different than the sword, very same. So play with it on your own, and you really have to get your hands on it. You gotta roll it around. You gotta get a sense for what it is. Otherwise, you're just a kata monkey, right? And while that may be perfectly good for preserving the traditional heritage practice, it would be like learning how to sing the ancient song of some forgotten people without knowing what the words mean. Yeah, you're doing it, and it's here forever, but the meaning is gone, right? And that's what the meaning is. What's meaningful, right? The outside is just a convenient expression. So really try and play with it, right? Have some fun, and make it part of you, if you like. If not, discard it. Right. So I think that's pretty much it. I think that we've shown enough that you guys can get a sense of the application for Uke Nagashi. Again, this is for Hirari, it's for Migi, it's for two hands, it's for one hand. It's for the wide step of Nagashi Uchi, it's for the cross step of Uke Nagashi. It's all the same concept, right? So, if you want to understand it, you have to pick up sword and go train.